What's happening, Bitcoin accumulation country? It's your host, Coin Icarus. This is the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, sponsored by Crypto Cloaks for all your 3D printing needs. And we are in season 3, and this is episode 39. Thank everybody for joining me once again. We are having a really interesting talk today. I sat down with Mrs. Hodl, or Ms. Hodl, who's also known as Justine on Twitter. And yeah, we just, shot the shit and talked about Bitcoin and, talked about how she got into it and, some of the different social aspects of it. And yeah, it was a really great conversation, and she's a super cool Bitcoiner. But before we get into that conversation, we are going to talk about dollar cost averaging and Swan Bitcoin. For anybody who is interested in dollar cost averaging and who wants to be purchasing Bitcoin but doesn't want to be spending their time constantly watching the charts and listening to traders that they really have no idea whether these people are credible or not, and you kind of just want to put this in a passive sleep mode where you're simply just accumulating and hodling, being able to transfer that Bitcoin out to your own private address. So if you're interested in doing that and that falls in your wheelhouse, then you are looking for Swan Bitcoin. With Swan Bitcoin, the three main takeaways are we can do automatic withdrawal from a bank account, automatic purchases of BTC. You can time them based on your when you receive your check. You can do it let's say once you can do it once a month, or you can do it per pay period as well. There's lots of options for you to be able to customize how you purchase. And you could automatically withdraw to your chosen address. So if you're interested in a Bitcoin-only platform that is doing the great work of helping onboard people, then you definitely want to check out Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to have the link to their website in the show notes. All right, here we go. Sit back. Here is my chat with Ms. Hodl. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I have a fellow Bitcoiner that I've actually been following on Twitter for just a couple of months. But I had seen her tweets before, and I find that, even though I think that she thinks she shit talks, I think that she makes a lot of sense in a lot of her tweets. And I am talking about Ms. Hodl. Ms. Hodl, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast.
Hey there, thanks so much for having me. And I appreciate that. I'm glad that my shit talking, comes across well.
Not so bad, you'll see. I picked up some tweets, that we'll look at after, but look, before we get into that, I always, on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, I always like to start off with the rabbit hole story, but, more than just, how you got into Bitcoin, the thinker behind the thought, where were you before Bitcoin, and then how did you get here?
Absolutely. So my journey is a little bit different than some of the others that I've heard in the space. So I have always been into self-sovereignty since I was, early 20s, even late teen years. So the self-sovereignty aspect is something I've been shooting for a long time. That involved, self-sustainable living, huge gardens, living off the land, animals, working on being as self-sufficient as humanly possible. And part of that included gold, because so this mindset of the Fed being a bad thing and wanting to get away from centralized government as much as possible is something that I'm very used to. So I came across Bitcoin in, I think it was mid 2016, and it's made sense on a philosophical level, and it all made sense to me. And so then when I went in to sort of get these questions answered that I had, because I'm not very tech savvy, it was, well, how is it secured? How does it work? The idea made sense, but how does it work? When I went in and looked, I just was so overwhelmed. I just was so completely and utterly overwhelmed, and thought, well, clearly, this is not for me. It's way over my head. Cool idea, but the whole tech aspect is going to be a barrier for me. So then, went back to my life of taking care of chickens or whatever I was doing at the time. And then I think it was in late 2016, James Corbett from the Corbett Report, which is like an alternative news source, was talking about this site that was a cryptocurrency social platform. And he was like, you just post your content and you earn crypto. So here my head is, this cryptocurrency that I'd heard about before, and now it's in content. And I used to run a small business, which I still sort of do. And part of that was educating individuals to make the products I sold. So I was making content. So I signed up for the site, started throwing my content out there, and was getting cryptocurrency. And through that process, learned what a wallet was, learned what keys were, learned, kind of about the tech in a way that was very, very, there was nothing I could lose, if that makes sense. It was very easy. And after spending time there, trying to make that what I thought Bitcoin was, right? Like this non-controllable currency that I had been looking for, I realized that was not what I was looking for. And then went back to Bitcoin and looked at it. And from what I had learned, it all made sense then. And so then I felt confident enough to jump into Bitcoin. I think it was probably early 2017. I could be wrong on that. Of when I finally was like, yes, I'm confident enough to put my money into this. And then since then have just been trying to fall down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. So a lot of it makes sense to me on a self-sovereign aspect, but I am not tech savvy at all. So there's a lot of things that have been very much a learning curve for me. But it's been a great journey. So yeah, that's kind of like my shortened rabbit hole story, if that makes sense.
That's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned that you have like there was like interest in gold. So was the interest as like a savings technology, or was it that people were actually using gold, to
Purely
actually
saving.
buy things?
Yeah, purely saving. I never was
Purely
under
saving.
the concept that you will go out and buy, your coffee or groceries with gold. It was a much safer place to keep my savings than in the bank account. Also, when you think of this aspect of society completely collapsing, right? And what sort of currency do you have that can be used in a peer-to-peer way? Gold sort of fit that, right? Like if nothing works in the world and the system is completely collapsed and I need to go trade some who knows what for a tractor and I have some gold, like it seems so insane when you think about the fall of society, but you have to have some sort of peer-to-peer currency. And so at that time, gold was sort of the thought process along with bartering and having different skills that might be seen as valuable in that sort of aspect. So yeah, it was more savings and like if the world collapsed as far as the economy wise, not a spending aspect at all.
Um, so you mentioned that like you're not really tech savvy. So I have to wonder like so to me it seems like it's obviously seems a bit like a leap, right? Is that something that that worries you as a Bitcoiner, that you're not tech savvy, or as tech
Yes.
savvy as you would like to
It's
be? We'll say.
Yes, no, I think that's something that I think is really important. So for me, it's not okay to be in Bitcoin and then depend on somebody else to secure my Bitcoin and to ensure that it's there. Like for me, it's very important to have that self custody and have the knowledge to be able to feel confident enough to do what I need to do, and understand the system enough. So that I spent the first 6 months just trying to understand it enough to know what was happening and to feel confident enough to keep pouring money into it. I mean, it's really hard when you think about, I'm just going to throw money into the abyss of something I don't understand and hope it works out. Like, that's just not how my brain works, right? Just not at all. And so it was trying to understand it. And now, for maybe the last 6 months or so, I've been trying to do more hands on, trying to get a node started. I have some crazy internet stuff going on. So even though it would have been much easier if I didn't have to fight my internet, it's still happening. It's taking for freaking ever. And it's been a learning process, but that's something that I think is really important, like learning what a hardware wallet was and getting that under, like all of it is so, it's a learning process. But I guess for me, I also taught myself about herbal medicine and how to cure for chickens. And, when an issue came up on the homestead, you solve it. And were those things easy to learn? No, they take time. And so for me, it's the same concept. It's learning new skills by experiencing them and having really amazing people to help me when I go, I have no idea what this is saying. But it's challenging for me because it's completely out of my realm. But I think there's a lot of people that kind of are in the same place as me. So I think that there's something to that of being very vocal about saying, no, I'm not tech savvy, but here's what I've learned and here's what I know is possible. Because I do think that those aspects are very important for being a Bitcoiner, or even, Bitcoiner aside, like if you're looking for a currency that gives you freedom and removes the middleman, then you can't have a middleman. So those things are sort of vital if that's your goal, which that is my goal.
So you mentioned getting a node started. I'm so curious. Which one are you going with? Which
Oh
one are you
Lord.
trying
So I'm currently
or
on
going to
Bitcoin
try?
Core. So
Sorry?
well, so I had been given, yeah, I've been given a Casa Lightning node just to test, just to sort of, Justin Filson had sent it to me of just like, just do it, open a channel with me so you feel confident. And so I'm on very limited satellite internet. His thought was, I've already, it's already synced up until this point. You should be able to do it. Yeah, no, it didn't work. So then it was, okay, well, I can do it at town using my hotspot, but I can't do a hotspot on the Casa because it has to be connected to a router specifically. So then it was, well, I'll download Bitcoin Core and then I can just sync it at work using my hotspot. And then, hotspot was limited. And so I was like, what the hell? So I've actually had help from Udi's been helping me quite a bit, but we pulled the data from the Casa node, put that on a hard drive, and now I'm currently validating those blocks to ensure everything's proper there. And then from that point, I will then go to town on my hotspot and sync the rest of the way. So it's been insane. Like, what a ridiculous process. But I'm like, we are freaking doing this. So yeah, so I have some obstacles with internet that is making it a little more challenging, but then I'm learning so much. Like I'm using the command line and doing things that I would have never saw myself doing a few months ago. I'd look at it and be like, what do I do here? So it's been, that hands-on learning through experience is it's really the way I thrive. And so it's been great actually, but it is, every time someone says it's so easy, I'm like, is it though? I mean, I'm sure it is for some people, but unfortunately, it has been a little bit of a challenge for me. So yeah, I'm not even using a plug and play node at this point. I'm just going straight to core on an old laptop. Wow. And just trying to figure it out. So we'll see. I'm getting close. I've got, yeah.
Just so you know, for real, if you had proper internet, you would be like,
it would be easy.
It would be so easy, and you'd be having the same experience that many other people are having.
Everybody else is.
Well, not everybody, because I do. Yeah, there are some people not having that experience as well. I've spoken to, but
true.
It's pretty. Yeah,
it's easy. Yes,
and it feels nice.
Yes, when I've heard that when it all works, and it's like it's almost so fitting that I'm having such a hard time with it because I need to learn. And so it's like, what a better way for me just to learn from the ground up than just know nothing that's easy is going to work. You have to just manually do it all. So it is kind of bittersweet, but fitting. So yes, I don't run a full node yet, sadly, but I'm getting close. And when it's done, everybody will know that it's done because I'll be sure of it. So yes, working on that.
And anything worth doing is usually, I find
it takes time and
yeah. So
it's true.
Don't worry.
Yep.
Okay, so more questions about the node. Do you know if do you have a Casa 1 or a Casa 2? Did you get like the new really square box, or
I think it's the Casa 1. No, you're good. I actually have it right here. Hold on.
Oh, nice.
I think it's the 1, right? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's the.
Can you tell?
Yeah, it's the 1. Okay.
Yeah, because there was something that we were gonna do. Actually, I forget what Udi was gonna do, but he was like,
if you could show it to me from the side. Yeah, I'm super sorry. Let me see. And the other
side? You're fine.
Oh yeah, no, that's the 1. Okay.
That's the 1?
Yeah. Okay.
So I just pulled the data off of it, which was interesting. And yeah.
Not as simple.
I mean, it's just like the whole thing. It's like, oh, I have this old computer. Sure. Like, does this work? And so it's seriously like Udi and I on a Zoom call, and he's like, well, let me see your screen. Okay. I don't know what you're doing. It's hilarious. So yes, so it's been an experience, but yes. So soon.
Very cool. No, congratulations. I actually made a video for people that are, I assume not that tech savvy, but somewhat tech savvy that are willing to get into the command line, and I do like a step-by-step video to set up a Raspberry Blitz, and it it's a Lightning node, Bitcoin node that has all different types of services on it, and the hope is to reach people similar to you that want to get into this, want to buy the parts, and so let me ask you, like, does something like that would a resource like that appeal to you, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me, so I really, really enjoy learning. So my goal for the node was actually in my mind before I knew I was going to have all these issues was I wanted to try the casa and just get comfortable with it. Then I wanted to do a Bitcoin core. And then I wanted to try the node, like what all these different ones and see which really was the easiest for me. So then I could share with people like, hey, if you're not tech savvy at all, this is the one for you. Like here's a video of the comparison, just so learning from my experience, I think is really beneficial. So having somebody focusing on that, because I would love to eventually sit down and like build a node. And yes, absolutely. I think it's all kind of that stepping stone, but it depends on how far down the rabbit hole you want to fall. And for me, I want to fall all the way. So it's like, as I get comfortable with this, I now want to go do that. So absolutely. I think that's very beneficial personally.
Very cool. So let me ask you this: do you find that throughout this process, that you're, getting help from people in the, in the Bitcoin space, are people being, like difficult with you getting help, or are people being,
I have
because I've
people
heard that,
are
I've
so
heard that
welcoming.
I've heard that Bitcoiners are pretty toxic.
You're toxic.
And pretty horrible human beings.
I've heard that
apparently.
too. No, so
So,
this is actually kind of, yeah. And I mean, I get
experienced
that
it.
my experience, yes. I mean, I get that my experience
Sorry.
is maybe not the same as everybody else's, but to show where I came into the space at, just so everyone's clear, I was on, at the time it was Steam, now it's Hive, but at the time it was Steam. I was on Steam and I was under the impression, like at that point in my life, I had realized that it wasn't the currency. It wasn't a currency in my head. It was like a cool social aspect that people used, and it was kind of an in-game token. That's not where my passion was. But what I saw was how it was onboarding people to Bitcoin. I saw how Bitcoin intimidated me, but this thing didn't. And so how do I use this thing to get people to Bitcoin? So that's where kind of my head was when I went back to Bitcoin. And I went to a conference that happened to just be in LA, and I met Dan Held. And like we had this conversation about it. And here I am, to Bitcoin maximalist, probably a complete idiot, right? Like, what do you mean that Steam could onboard people to Bitcoin? Like, what the hell are you talking about? And he was so patient with me and was like, okay, like I get that this is your experience, but here's some of the aspects that are a little difficult with that and why we kind of want to steer people away from that. And was just super, super, just really welcoming and very helpful. And then it started to click with me of, okay, so that makes sense. Like, why would we get anyone into a currency that's not really a currency? But how do I stop someone from having the same experience that I did? Like, how do we make it not intimidating? But I didn't understand it enough. I didn't really understand the difference between Bitcoin and some of the ones I had experienced on from like a technical level and like a secure level, like all those things I didn't get. And it wasn't something where I could just go look at it online and be like, oh, well, here, let's compare this and this. And it just didn't make sense to me. So then I found myself on Bitcoin Twitter asking questions. And MSHodl was like, I remember him being like, I forget what he said. Something about like, if you want to come to such and such mumble, then I'll tell you why you're wrong. Like that was kind of the invitation was like, you're clearly wrong. And if you want to come here, I'll tell you why. And I was like, okay, like I want to learn. Of course I'll come. And so I show up in the Dragon's Den. Yeah. MSHodl's not even there. It was Shinobi, Brian Trolls. And I pop in and someone's like, okay, hi, how are you? And I forget who all was there. And I remember the Shinobi being like, I know who this chick is. I am not in the mood to talk about this bullshit. And I was like, okay, like whatever. And so I'm on voice and he asked me like one question. And I think he very quickly learned, like, I wasn't there to shill anything. I was there to learn. Like I had legitimate questions. I want to know how this works. This is where my passion is as far as like where I'm coming from a self-sovereign aspect. Like these are my questions. And we sat and talked for probably 2 hours and he was amazing. And he answered all my questions and was super polite. And I have had an amazing experience, but it also was because I was asking questions very loudly. And when somebody was like, well, you're clearly retarded, I was like, okay, cool. But can you answer my question? So I mean, it's probably a combination of both. Maybe the way that I approached it, but I have been extremely welcomed. And I say that as someone who's been canceled on Twitter, I don't know how many times, like twice, maybe. I still think the space is extremely welcoming. I think that if you want to learn and you are confident enough to ask questions, there are a ton of people that will take time and help you. And just, like the node thing, like Justin Filson helped me a ton with the lightning thing. And then Udi reached out to me about something, and he has spent so many hours helping me with the node. So for me, my experience, people have been extremely welcoming. Um, anything I need or questions, people have been there to answer for sure.
So are you are you working at all in the Bitcoin space?
I'm not. No,
No.
people, that's the funny thing when people tell me I'm a paid shill or something. I'm like, well, can I get
What?
my check?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm shilling, but can I please get my check? No, I'm not paid at all. I've
Really?
had a couple requests to shill things and I've said no. Like, I'm here to learn. I really like the community. I have a passion for kind of the revolution. So yeah, no, I don't work in the space at all.
So I'm sorry. People insinuate that you're getting paid to shill BTC.
Yeah. I don't know.
Ah,
I'm not sure what they think I'm
from
shilling.
the Bitcoin CEO. We all get our
Right, from the
check. We
CEO.
all
I
get
mean,
our
I
check from
did,
him or her
right. I did get
or they.
accused of shilling shit coins, which I still have not seen where I shilled them, but I did help with a project like last year or the beginning of this year. So that was one thing. And that's fair. That's a fair criticism, but I wasn't shilling anything. I have turned down so many shill requests from altcoins and shit coins that sometimes I wonder what's wrong with me. Um, but yes, no, I have not been paid to promote anything. I definitely haven't been paid to promote BTC. If somebody wants to pay me to promote Bitcoin, I will totally take that. But yeah, it's just a silly thing. I think when you have a woman, it's not even just women. I really don't like to even point at the women thing because there's plenty of men who get shit in this space for being a shill. But yeah, I just think, here I am. I post a photo, maybe I post a video, and someone's immediate response is like, what is she selling? And that's fine. Like I get that response. And I've even made the joke before, like, I'm not selling anything. I'm just sharing my journey and just trying to share with you why I think like this freedom aspect is so important. But yes, no work. There's your long answer for your question there.
I think it. Thank you. And I think it kind of says something about the passion, right, of Bitcoiners towards Bitcoin and towards the space is that, like I see like there's a lot of people that don't get paid, and just absolutely
Mm-hmm.
love it and
Yeah.
totally
We're
dive
just
down the rabbit
crazy and
hole.
passionate. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing when you come across people, and I get that there's so much, I don't even know how to present this in the way, but like there's a lot of opportunities to shield stuff that's not Bitcoin, a ton, especially being a female in the space that occasionally posts photos. Like you get random messages all the time to shill it. And so it's not shocking to me that someone who's not like super passionate about this movement would do that. Like who wouldn't, like, oh, you want to pay me just to say your name? Like who wouldn't do that? But to me, it's like, I'm passionate about this thing. I understand how those other things can wreck people, for one, and how they add different challenges and things that I just don't agree with. So for me, like I will never use my Twitter whatever to promote anything I don't truly believe in. Now, what I've truly believe in has gotten me in trouble before because there were products I would use, or like there was a wallet that I had personally used and thought was really great and was like, hey, and I had talked about it a couple times, and then it was a wallet that like ended up not working anymore. And I was like, shit, I can't use this
Well,
platform to promote something unless I'm fully confident in it and something I believe in. So it's something that I'm actually really careful about. Even like conferences, because I shilled a conference that I was going to go to and ended up like the dude didn't put on the conference and I still haven't gotten my money back. So like there's things like that where it's still kind of a tricky situation, even if you're not being paid. But once you kind of have, I hate to say platform because I've just shit posted in hodl. Like I'm not here for an audience, but I think once you start to have a voice, you have to be really careful about how you use it. And so that's something that I'm still trying to find a balance in. Even if I say, oh no, I'm not shilling anything, it's like, okay, but I mentioned this one thing and now that one thing doesn't work. So yes.
um, that's no that's absolutely it's true. Once you get to that point and you end up having that type of stage, it does. Even though like we sit there and joke around and we're just talking about Bitcoin, there's a lot of people actually. There's a lot of people watching. Surprisingly, more people than we
Right.
think. Okay, but going back to using your platform that way, you put out a tweet, okay, and this was something that we were kind of all watching as Bitcoiners in cringe. Not your tweet, but the what it referenced, okay, was that that guy there, the lightning, the father that's like a lightning shill that has his daughter
Oh
shilling
yeah.
crypto there, like Miss
Yeah.
Teen Crypto. It was like, yeah, that was back in that was like a couple of weeks ago, like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's
I
not
got
something you
some
should be
trouble for
promoting.
that.
I'm sorry?
I said I got some trouble for that one. I mean, I had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? Like,
Well, oh
no, but I mean,
gosh.
like, really?
Yes.
Like,
No,
that
there
that was a bad take, that, like, somebody shouldn't be using their kid that way? That was a bad take?
that's that
That's
was sort of my thought. You know, here's the issue is I'm on the internet and I'm a female and I know what comes from that, right? I'm not making daily videos or posting selfies, but I still understand um the attention that you get from that, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So putting a young girl in that situation, and I'm going to be frank, I think it's very deliberate. It's very deliberate what she wears. It's very deliberate the way the camera works. It's very deliberate her movements. It feels very unnatural. She's clearly reading. Like there's clearly a thing happening here. And the goal is to get an audience and either make money or, start. I don't know what your end goal is, but it's obvious that this is the goal. And so when I first saw it, oh God, a young girl coming into this space where, we're a bunch of degenerates, that's unfortunate, but good for her, I guess, if that's what you're trying. And then it kind of goes along and it feels very scripted and very weird and just strange. And then, yeah, then it was kind of shared with me that who her dad was. And I think I had made a simple comment about, it very much seems like she's not in control of her account because it doesn't seem natural. And I was attacked by an individual of like, how dare you say that? You're clearly jealous. And I'm like, what? What?
What?
And so it's this full grown man telling me I'm jealous of a teenager because I said that it clearly wasn't her running the account. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm really confused by your response. First of all, like I'm a grown woman. That would be really weird to be jealous of a teenager, but I didn't say anything that would even remotely like display that. And he just went after me. And so then I got a message from someone who simply just said, like, that's her dad and he runs the account and this is who he's running it with. And I was kind of shocked who was running it with them. And then it all made sense to me. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went and looked at this gentleman and he attacked anyone who would say even anything remotely like questionable about this girl, like immediately start attacking the women about how jealous you are. You're just so mad that you're not beautiful and young like her. And I'm like, what a weird response. And so, yes, I made that tweet because I was mad and think that it was just really shitty to put a young girl in that situation. And yes, I got so much heat. I like some of the light corners were actually doing a targeted, like they had a Telegram group that was working together to try to get me banned. So they were reporting my account apparently for sexual exploitation of a minor. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like I called out that you guys are sexualizing a child and then you're reporting me for doing it. So it was very strange. I just blocked a lot of people, which is generally what I do when I like kick the hornet's nest of some group. I then just have to block like 100 accounts. Yeah, it was weird. The reaction was strange. And what I found out in the reaction was that all the people who were upset were involved in it. And they knew who she was and they knew that he was running her account. And they knew the whole point was they thought this was a great marketing campaign, that this girl was going to teach people about it. And it was weird. It was a strange thing. But yeah, I guess I'm not a complete stranger to controversy and pissing people off. So that was an interesting one for sure. Who knew that was going to be the take that really just pissed people off?
Oh my God. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, definitely met some lunatics in the space. And yeah, I didn't realize that it blew up that big. I mean, I had followed it a little bit,
Yeah.
and obviously, I was like, these are terrible takes. Like, I thought, obviously, I was like, her take is great. Like, totally made sense. Like, I think I totally thought that it was creepy and cringy, like what was going on. And I didn't even know that the father was involved. Just without him and just seeing those tweets, I was like, this is really tough to watch. Like, it's almost like you're embarrassed for this person as they're doing this. So
yeah, and I mean, I probably didn't handle it the best way I could have. Like, there was probably better ways I could have worded it. There's self-reflection, like there was probably better ways I could have taken care of it. But yeah, the response was weird. The response to me even saying that it wasn't, like, it clearly was not ran by her was very strange. Like, red flags going off all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And the response from the community was just insane to me. Like, and I say community, clearly it's not everyone, like you can't wrap everybody in, but there was like this core group of individuals that would go around to anyone who said anything, because I wasn't the only one that brought it up, and would attack them viciously. And then I started to realize and connect the dots that all those people were involved in it, and they knew her. Like, some of them knew her personally and this family. And it was like, this was their marketing thing of like, we're going to get this chick. She's going to get some followers and we're going to pump our bags. It's like, really? Like, how is that acceptable to you? And how do you not see the issue here? And even as women, women in the space, do you not get weird messages? Like, do you really want her exposed to that? Oh. It's just, yeah, there were so many things that just did not sit well with me. I mean, to each their own. I try to remind myself not everybody's going to have the same thoughts in the world as me, but it was a strange thing that a lot of people had some concerns about. And so when it had been shared with me of clearly the accounts being ran by so-and-so, that, I just, couldn't help myself to throw that out there.
It's okay. I still think you did the right thing.
Thanks.
But moving on, there was another tweet, okay, that you put out on 8/25, which so it kind of touches base with Bitcoin, because there's a lot of this that goes on. So I'm going to read it off, okay? So you wrote, "Never really understood the slay your heroes thing. Why do you have heroes? Humans are humans. They're flawed. Accept that and realize no one will ever live up to your expectations. They shouldn't have to. Then carry on with your life. That thing you can control." So...
yeah.
So, I mean, that's something that I find that you end up learning, like, not just through Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, I think, really drives that point home about, like the whole, like, I know that, obviously people slay their heroes because they have heroes, but it's like, and I know people explain to you like 50 million different ways about like the archetypes of heroism and all of that stuff.
Right.
But like, it just, people for some reason, they like to follow people. They think objective about other people, that people can be better, than you.
Right. And that's the thing is that, and so, to clarify, I think people seem to think that I overthink tweets way more than I do. Like, when I tweet something, it's not planned. I don't even proofread it. Like, it's seriously just a random ass thought that I throw out there. And maybe one day I'll learn and like put a little more thought process into it. But it was just a simple thought I was having, because I see it over and over. And I do think that in Bitcoin, everybody's really great about slaying their heroes, right? Like, we can have these leaders, and then as soon as they fall out of line with whatever we think is good, we're not afraid to call them out. Mm-hmm. And I say we, even though I'm not really involved in that, but it's something that I think is inspiring, and I think it's good. And I actually, the only Medium post I've ever written was about like this, immune system that Bitcoin has, that was very refreshing to me, because when I came from the altcoin, I felt like I was this immune system that was trying to fight things that were hurting the system, and nobody else really was. And it was because there was no incentive to protect it, because the incentive was to, like, game this inflation rewards pool that I clearly hate now. But that was the goal. That was the incentive. There was no incentive for anybody to help the overall platform, if that makes sense. I'm being kind of vague. But when you go to Bitcoin, like, everybody benefits from Bitcoin going up. There is no like random inflation pool that people are fighting over by, like spamming or whatever, because this was the content platform. So that's something I found really refreshing, was like, wow, everybody's kind of on the same team in that way. Like, they can agree on nothing, but they benefit when Bitcoin goes up. And when something hurts Bitcoin, it hurts everybody, right? Like, this is something that's just, bottom line, immune system tactics. We can all agree on that. So to actually see how the community jumps in to defend something that they think is a threat was very refreshing to me. I do think that there's some aspects that I think get a little bit out of hand. Just being honest, I know that's an unpopular thing to say. I think you can get to the like social justice warrior thing of like, if you don't see things exactly like I do, then you're a threat. Well, no, like let's not be crazy. But I do think that there's something really refreshing to that. So you see that over and over. And one thing that I will say is that in this space, there's a lot of people that, like you said, they need a hero. They put people on a pedestal and they start worshiping them. And then they get really disappointed when they don't live up to their expectations. And it's like, okay, well, perhaps they don't have the same expectations as you. And maybe we should just say, hey, this person adds this to the space and that's valuable, or this person is doing this and that's negative, rather than focusing so much on putting somebody in that leadership role that you then just have to take away. So I think that was sort of my mindset at the time. I think that's when the Lop thing was happening. I think Lop has done amazing things in this space. Just his informational, website is huge. That's something that I found a lot of that was really beneficial to me. So I think it's hard to say, okay, well, this person's added so much, but they made this one comment and now they're dead to us, like that to me is, I try to be a little bit more, I don't even know if it's correct, but I try to be a little bit more rational of like, okay, yeah, that's really shitty. I don't really agree with that. Like, what are you doing? But I also do think like all of these things you've done are really beneficial. And so perhaps you just don't see things the same way as me, and that's fine. So I think it's a balance there. That tweet wasn't really about Lot, but I know there were all those things going on. And just a lot of times I see people on social media, they put people on a pedestal. I mean, they really do sort of need someone to follow, like you said. And I just think that leads to disappointment all the time. So yeah, it was just kind of a random thought. I didn't mean for it to be like even a comment on the situation. It was just more like, I see you guys needing someone to follow, like perhaps just don't do that. Maybe, like focus on what you can do. So yeah, sometimes I say things and don't even acknowledge that other people can read them. And then I'm left to like explain what I meant and why I didn't mean that, or, oh gosh, I phrased that really wrong. And yeah, so there's really no process or really logic to my tweeting. It's just me being me.
So did you have any, did you end up having any heroes in Bitcoin? I have to ask that.
I don't. I know, right? So some people. This is crazy because I said this to someone before, and my terminology totally threw them. I have crushes in Bitcoin, and it has nothing to do with a romantic way whatsoever. Like it has nothing. Like I'm not crushing on them romantically, but I call it crushes of like people who I just really admire, who I think are just doing really big things. And yeah, I mean, I totally have those, but it's never really been in a way that I think they would disappoint me, if that makes sense. I might just be wired differently, but yeah, I respect Adam Beck a lot. I think he's just someone who I enjoy hearing his experiences and like what he thinks on things, and had the opportunity to have lunch with him and a bunch of other people at one of the conferences, and just really like, I just want to pick his brain, if that makes sense. So he's definitely one of them. Like I give Dan shit, and I know a lot of people do, and I don't agree with everything he does, but he's one of the people that made it click for me. Dan Held, when I looked into Bitcoin, like he is somebody who he was talking about something and it just clicked, and it was like, whoa, I have to learn more. So yeah, I mean, there's people in this space that I have to thank for me being here and who I look up to and like who are doing cool things in the space. Jack Mallers, I mean, who can not like him? But I don't know. I wouldn't say that I have heroes, I guess. I'm not sure. I could be broken.
No, it's okay.
That could be it.
I have to, I gotta ask.
Yeah.
So did you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you happen to read Dan Held's Planting Bitcoin?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I did. I think actually at the first conference, that was what he was sort of talking about, was planting Bitcoin. Yeah. That was like my first introduction to everything. Yes. I think he writes good shit, man. Like right? Nobody can debate that. He writes really good shit.
I totally agree. Can't take that away from him, at all. So
absolutely. Yeah, I mean that the Little Bitcoin book was one of the big ones because they were all at the conference that I first went to. So the Bitcoin Is conference was my first Bitcoin conference that I went to. And it was just such an amazing experience because I got like all of the most amazing people in the space from a content level in one room that I got to sort of absorb. Yeah, I mean, Saifedean's book, of course, like for me, it was more, I think a lot of the books are garnered toward like the psychological or philosophical aspects of Bitcoin. And that already makes sense to me. So for me, it was more like trying to understand things I didn't understand and how it worked. And then trying to find content that didn't completely go over my head to explain it. And so, yeah, I think Dan was probably one of the ones that I listened to most when I was learning. And then you go from there. Like, then I have this general grasp of something, and then I fall down over here a little bit more. MSHodl has stuff that I've really enjoyed. Parker, of course. Breedlove is amazing. Like, my God. Yes. I just watched his talk in BitBlock Boom, and like, my gosh, like just how he's just such like an inspirational individual when you hear him speak of these things that you just leave so bullish. And so, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of people who I just really respect in this space. There's so many, like when we think about how many people we're surrounded by that just are doing big things. I disagree with Peter on pretty much everything, but his content was one too that was one of the first podcasts I listened to because it was approachable. It was something that didn't intimidate me, and that I think adds tremendous value. So I will always stand up for that, because it's like, no, you know, if I didn't have that, I'm not sure I'd be sitting here. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I think this space is amazing, and I don't want to get too gushy. I feel like I'm gushing now, but I really do think this community is pretty kick-ass, and like, I feel so thankful to have met so many and get to hear, their thoughts. Yeah.
Right. Like so many amazing people in one space.
So
like,
cool.
Like every single time I've ever seen that, like amazing things happen. That's just the way it works. Like you don't find that anywhere else. So yeah,
absolutely.
I
agree.
I mean, obviously, like, don't agree with everybody, like in every aspect, but yeah, of course. Well,
I've made that joke before, and I actually got trolled for it quite a bit, but it was like, I feel like it's really cool that most people here do not agree on anything. Like, we don't agree on anything except the fact that Bitcoin is hard money and it's what we believe in. And it's like that thing holds us all together. And I think there's something really telling about that. Like, and Peter's a friend. He's one of the first people I met in the space. I disagree with him on so many things, like so many damn things, but it's like, but we can agree on this, you know what I mean? Like, and so therefore we can still be friends. And yeah, I don't know. I think there's something really amazing about that. And then on the other hand, there's so many libertarian, like freedom loving people that's the most I've ever been around. Like, to find a group like that is so insane, but that's just one part. Like, we have socialist Bitcoiners, and we have, feminist Bitcoiners, and we have, there's just everybody. And I think that's pretty amazing. And so, yes, I've made that joke before that there's people I don't get along with at all. I think you're completely wrong on absolutely everything, but yeah, we can agree on Bitcoin. So we're cool. We can get a beer and chat about it.
So what do you, as a non-technical person, what do you think is missing? Right. Because, I mean, look, you've heard, obviously we saw that discussion about the funnel, and everything like that. And that was a big thing. So what do you, what do you think is missing?
I mean, I'm not sure that anything is missing per se. I would say that the way that it's organized is confusing for someone who doesn't know anything. And you go and Google Bitcoin, what comes up? You get bitcoin.com, you get bitcoin.org, like, even that small thing when I first looked was like, oh, well, right. Like, that's, which one is it? Which? So then I had to go search and be like, well, what are the differences here? Like, what am I looking at? And even those small things, for someone who has no idea what they're looking at, it's confusing. And so then you go and look on YouTube, what comes up? The best content is not shining. If you can get people to the right place, there's amazing content, like absolutely amazing content, but getting them there is hard. How you do that, I don't know. Like, that's sort of one of those things where it's almost like a user interface aspect. Like, well, maybe if the Google algorithm was different and this showed up instead of that, sure. But it's like getting people to the right place. I feel like when I got to the right place, I got the information I needed. I will still say that as much technical how-tos that there are, here, and I love the people doing them. Some of them are hard to follow for someone who has no technical skill whatsoever. It still is a little bit over my head. Like for me, and I have a little bit of educational, elementary educational background. So for me, it's like the process is you give them a very small glimpse. You're not telling them on everything, right? Everything is confusing. Give me a small glimpse. Let me understand from a very general aspect how this works. And then once I understand that, then I move to step 2. And then I'm learning more. And then I go on and I learn more. And so for me, that's the way I learn. I think it's a very simple way of education. And I'm not sure I've seen that yet. Is that absolutely needed? I don't know. Like I'm not really sure if we really need to dumb it down that much, but that's something that I haven't seen done quite yet. But I think there's amazing content here, but finding it is a little bit tricky for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can relate to that because I, came into Bitcoin first for Bitcoin and then, fell for shitcoins in 2017. And of course it was because of a lot of confusing info. And I wanted to comment back to the fact that when you came into Bitcoin, like I think that you were kind of lucky getting to go into that mumble chat and getting to speak, with
Oh
Shinobi.
yeah.
Because like there's a guy in the mumble chat that I hang out in, Bitcoin Enemies, and he hasn't been Bitcoining for very long. And he is so lucky to get to speak to the people that are there. It's like, man, if 3 months into Bitcoin, I got to have these Bitcoiners talking to me about Bitcoin, like I would have never, like I would have never ended up in shitcoins. Like I would have heard the right things. I would have gone to the right places.
Yes. Yes. So it's like for me, I'm like, why wasn't I here before?
Yes.
But I'm so glad that when I finally got into it, that I found that. There's like Bitcoin kindergartners. I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, Bitcoin kindergarten.
Nick, don't hurt me.
Nick.
Yes.
And,
so
My Living Truth.
Yes.
Shut up.
Yes. So that's such a cool thing. It's like reaching it from that point, because I think the one-on-one is really important. So yeah, I feel totally lucky, and it's totally random. Like I saw that they were doing one in LA, and what drew me to it was the way that Russell was explaining it. And he was like, I want this to be for everyone. Like I want this to be for non-tech people. And he just made it very welcoming. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going. And here I am by myself. I know nobody. Like, and I am not great in crowds of not knowing people, like, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? Like, I know nothing about, I knew a very little amount of Bitcoin of what I gathered from the internet, right? Like as much as I possibly could have from just researching it. At that point, I wasn't even on Bitcoin Twitter, really. Like I wasn't doing anything. And I was standing in coffee line, kind of nervous, being awkward, like, and Dan was behind me, and he was like, hi, how are you? Like, hi, my name's Dan, and was just being super nice. And I remember standing there, and all these people kept coming up and talking to him, and I was like, who are you? Like, why do people know who you are? And so I think that's why Dan and I bonded, because I was just the only one at the conference going like, but who are you exactly? And so he really kind of took me under his wing, and I sat at a dinner table with him and Alex Gladstein, and like a bunch of random people, and just got to pick their brain, and that was huge for me. And then after that, it sort of just went from there. And so and then I found myself in the mumble, and I was asking the dumbest questions of like, okay, but how does that work? And like, well, what do you mean by that? And yes, so much patience from Shinobi. Love that dude. Yeah, I feel like I'm very lucky the experience that I've had. I'm not sure if it was chance or if it was just like I jumped in. It was like, I'm learning this shit and you're going to tell me. But yeah, I feel very welcomed. And I wish I could sort of like make that experience for other people, because the one-on-one is really the best way to learn if you know nothing. So it's hard to replicate that though on like any form of mass scale whatsoever. So that's a little challenging.
I think to your point earlier that it does matter sometimes the way that you ask a question, because quite often a person can usually tell the difference between there's the questions that lead further in, and there are questions that keep everything away, right? Like you can
Absolutely.
tell, you can kind of tell when somebody is asking a question and they're just trying to dismantle what you're saying, what your answer is going to be. Whereas they're asking a genuine question and they want to understand what will lead to the next step. So
exactly. And that's why I kind of
that may have helped
keep
you.
mentioning that is I don't want it to seem like I'm saying, oh, well, it's because I did this, but I think it is a two-way street. Like I think that I got the response I did because of the way I approached it. And I think that that just is telling in the aspect of like, if you want to learn about something, absolutely people will take the time to teach you, but come at it as a way of genuinely wanting to learn and asking those questions and not being afraid to kind of put yourself out there. Cause I totally asked them questions and I got trolled a little bit and, you know, whatever. Like, I'm totally okay to say I have no idea what it is and I'm trying to learn. And I think when people saw that I was genuinely trying to learn, they were like, all right, cool. Like, all right, I'll take some time and teach you. So yeah, I think that's been amazing personally.
Very cool. So look, it's been awesome having you on the pod and talking about your experience. I actually didn't realize that you were, that untechnical. But I think
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, obviously it doesn't really make a difference. It's just, I think if anything, it's refreshing. And, it's nice to see that, like you're super excited to get into it. And anyways, it's awesome. You have good help
Yeah.
from some good people. So it's cool, you know?
Yeah, thank you very much. No, I think that there's a lot of us that are non-technical, and I think it's one of those things where it's like I'm going to prove it. Like if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like I promise. Like we're going to do this because yes, if anything, I just want to prove it to myself and perhaps share my journey with others to get them here when maybe it was intimidating in the beginning as well.
So any final thoughts for the listeners before we sign off?
Oh goodness. It's always hard the final thoughts because I have like no projects or anything I'm doing.
It's okay.
It's one of those things where like
Mm.
I need something to shill, damn it. Yeah,
Something.
I mean, for me, it's just I like to share the whole, if you really want to learn, reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask dumb questions. If you need anything from me, like my DMs are open. I'm going to try to work on sharing a little bit more. It's something that I'm passionate about of sort of my journey. And so maybe look out for some videos if I ever get to those. Sharing my node experience for one. That's been something funny that I'm going to try to do. So yeah, I'm just here enjoying it and learning. I don't really know what's down the road for me, but we'll see.
Cool. I think your note experience is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. I like that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you guys enjoyed my conversation with Ms. Hodl. Her contact details will be in the show notes as well as mine. So if you want to reach me, Telegram or Twitter, I'm at CoinIcarus. If you want to shoot me an email, I am CoinIcarus at funwithbitcoin.com. Thank you all for listening. Catch you all next time.